I think the most interesting thing about this whole Phoebe situation is not just the question of who her father might be. In my opinion, the real mystery is why her story is suddenly sitting so close to Brooklyn and Chase's marriage at the exact moment their relationship feels more fragile than ever. I could be wrong, and this is just my interpretation, but I feel like General Hospital may be quietly building something much bigger than a simple custody twist. There are too many emotional pieces lining up. Phoebe needing a family, Brooklyn becoming attached, Chase possibly making a devastating mistake with Willow, and now the idea that Joe could arrive in Port Charles as Phoebe's biological father. And I have to say it right away. I suspect Joe's arrival would not just be about Phoebe. I suspect he could become the emotional mirror Brooklyn never expected. Because when I look at the storyline, I don't just see a child being placed in the middle of a legal and family situation. I see a possible emotional reset for Brooklyn. I see a woman who has been trying so hard to build a stable life, only for that stability to possibly collapse right when she has opened her heart to a little girl. I'm starting to think Phoebe may be the hidden key to Brooklyn's next chapter. The small detail I keep coming back to is Brooklyn's attachment to Phoebe. I don't think that is random. I don't think the show would spend time building that connection unless it meant something. In my opinion, Brooklyn's bond with Phoebe feels less like a temporary caregiving arc and more like an emotional preview. It feels like the writers may be showing us the kind of mother Brooklyn could become before taking everything around her and shaking it apart. And that brings me to Chase. I might be wrong, but I feel like Chase and Brooklyn's marriage has been under quiet pressure for a while. On the surface, they may still look like a couple trying to do the right thing. But underneath, there are cracks. If the talk about Chase and Willow turns into a real emotional betrayal, or even a physical one, I think Brooklyn would be shattered in a way she may not be able to recover from quickly. Again, I'm not saying this is fact. This is just my interpretation. But I suspect Brooklyn would not simply brush off Chase crossing that line. She is loyal, passionate, and deeply protective of the people she loves. If she felt betrayed by her husband, especially while they were trying to become parents to Phoebe, I think it would hit her on two levels at once. It would not just be about marriage. It would be about the family she thought she was building. That is where Joe becomes very interesting to me. It could be that Joe arrives in Port Charles at the worst possible time for Chase, but the most emotionally important time for Brooklyn. If Joe is revealed as Phoebe's biological father, he could walk into town carrying grief, guilt, and unanswered questions about Delilah. And if he is still mourning his late wife, then he and Brooklyn could immediately share something very powerful: loss. Not the same kind of loss, of course. Joe may have lost a wife. Brooklyn may lose trust, security, and the dream of a family with Chase. But pain does not always need to be identical for two people to understand each other. In my opinion, that is where the hidden chemistry could begin. I suspect Joe might not arrive as some perfect new hero. He may have secrets. He may have made mistakes. He may know more about Delilah's past than anyone in Port Charles expects. But sometimes the most compelling soap pairings come from two damaged people finding comfort in the middle of chaos. And I'm starting to think Brooklyn and Joe could fit that pattern. Think about the timing. Brooklyn and Chase are trying to become Phoebe's official foster parents. That should be a hopeful storyline. But if Chase's connection to Willow explodes at the same time, then everything Brooklyn has been working toward could suddenly become unstable. The home she wanted to offer Phoebe might no longer look solid. The marriage that supported that plan might no longer feel safe. Then Joe appears. And suddenly, Phoebe's biological father is not just a name. He is a man standing in front of Brooklyn, carrying his own pain, his own history, and his own claim to the child Brooklyn has already started to love. I think that is emotionally complicated in the best soap opera way. Brooklyn might resent him at first. I can imagine her feeling like Joe is taking Phoebe away just when Phoebe has become part of her heart. I can also imagine Joe looking at Brooklyn and realizing that she truly loves his daughter. That could create tension, but it could also create respect. And in my opinion, respect could turn into tenderness. I feel like the story could play out with Brooklyn trying to protect Phoebe, Joe trying to reclaim his daughter, and both of them slowly realizing they are not enemies. They are two people who love the same child from different angles. That is the hidden emotional clue for me. Phoebe may not just connect Joe to Port Charles. She may connect Joe to Brooklyn. I could be wrong, but I suspect Delilah's background may also become a major factor. If Joe comes to town and reveals more about Delilah, it could change how everyone sees Phoebe's situation. Maybe Delilah was hiding from something. Maybe Joe was separated from her for reasons that are not simple. Maybe there are secrets in Delilah's past that explain why Phoebe ended up needing protection in the first place. It could be that Joe knows the truth, but he has been carrying it quietly. Or it could be that he only knows part of the truth and comes to Port Charles searching for the rest. Either way, I think Delilah's story matters. And if Brooklyn is the one who listens to Joe, if she is the one who sees his grief instead of judging him immediately, that could be the first emotional bridge between them. I'm starting to think the real question is not just, is Joe Phoebe's father? The deeper question may be, what happens when Brooklyn finds the kind of family she wanted, but not with the man she expected? That possibility is huge, because Brooklyn choosing a future with Joe and Phoebe would be messy. It would be controversial. It would hurt Chase. It would divide viewers. But in my opinion, it could also make emotional sense if Chase breaks her trust badly enough. I might be wrong, but I feel like Brooklyn's story has been moving toward a test of identity. Is she only Chase's wife in this chapter? Or is she someone who can rebuild herself after betrayal and choose a new kind of happiness? And Joe, if written carefully, could represent that new road. Not a clean road. Not an easy road. But a road connected to Phoebe, to grief, to healing, and to the idea that families can form in unexpected ways. I think the most haunting version of this story would be Brooklyn standing between the life she thought she had with Chase and the life she never expected with Joe and Phoebe. She may not plan to fall for Joe. She may even fight it. But shared pain has a way of opening doors people never meant to unlock. So, in my opinion, the hidden secret in this storyline is not only about Phoebe's paternity. It is about Brooklyn's emotional future. I suspect Phoebe could be the child who changes everything. I suspect Joe could be more than just a grieving father. And I'm starting to think Chase's possible betrayal may not just end a marriage. It may push Brooklyn toward a completely different family. Again, I could be wrong. This is just my interpretation, and I'm only looking at the small clues, the emotional timing, and the way these characters seem to be circling the same pain. But if Joe arrives, if Chase breaks Brooklyn's heart, and if Phoebe becomes the center of it all, then I think General Hospital could be setting up one of its most unexpected emotional turns. And I have a feeling Brooklyn's next love story may begin in the place she least expects. Not with romance first, but with grief, protection, and one little girl named Phoebe.
Goodbye. Please like, subscribe, and comment on the GH Spoilers Daily channel.